I was just self-abusive. I would look at myself in the mirror and smack myself. I found myself lacking in every way.
It was a never-ending cycle for Shannon Caldwell. As a young Catholic girl with alcoholic parents, she worked hard to earn their approval and God's.
I knew what a sinner I was, and I was trying to not be a sinner.
Throughout junior high and high school, Shannon worked hard to earn others' approval as well. She got a job in radio and immersed herself in activities.
I was on the high school quiz team and I was a cheerleader, but my self-esteem was at 0.
So, when a popular lifeguard asked her out the summer before her senior year, Shannon readily accepted, but the evening didn't go as she expected.
He gave me a little kiss and I thought like, okay, I'll kiss him. Why not? But then almost immediately he was on top of me. So I said, no. And I thought that would be that, because that is what we learn. You say no, they stop. That isn't what happened.
The rape left Shannon in shock, but she kept it to herself, aware that speaking up would only cause her further shame. Now she was anxious to earn her way back to God.
The culture of the church, it's clearly communicated that sex waits till marriage, so I had to find someone to marry me.
She found that someone. During her sophomore year in college, they married. But the relationship fell apart, and her husband left her just before Shannon graduated.
I had done my whole life trying to be good, perfect, and this was the result that I was getting. So I said, okay, I'm seeing people very successfully do life, and they're doing a lot of things that I was taught were bad things to do, you know, drinking, dancing, whatever. And so I just did it all.
Shannon married a second time and had a daughter. Again, her husband left after 2 years. The sting of rejection still fresh, she looked to her career and being a single mom to fulfill her.
At that point, I had a career that I was really enjoying. I was working in some radio stations that were legendary, and I was growing, and I was surrounded by a really strong group of friends, and so my community held me up.
Just a year later, her parents were killed in a tornado. For the first time, however, Shannon didn't hear God's condemnation in her mind. She felt his love.
When I was walking through the wreckage of the tornado, I could hear the voice of the Lord. And he was speaking, he said, though I walk through the valley of darkness and the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. And then I found my dad's walking stick. And then I really feel like the Lord's saying, I will help you walk. And I will show you where to go.
It would take Shannon 2 years to understand what that meant. By then, she was married to Joe and unhappy with herself and her marriage. Then she met a neighbor, Megan, and the two became friends. Later, Megan bought Shannon a Bible and suggested she start with the book of John. It was the first time Shannon ever read about Jesus and understood she didn't have to earn God's love.
The entire time that I am basically on earth, I'm thinking, we're on earth and there's heaven. How do we get there? And the answer most often looked something like, you do this, that, and not the other, okay? But Megan gave me a Bible that spoke differently about the answer to that question. There is an earth and there's a heaven. And how do you get from A to B? Jesus. And I wanted to follow him. I was like, oh wow, I think this is true.
Shannon started attending Bible study and reading the popular Rick Warren book, The Purpose-Driven Life. Suddenly, it all clicked.
The very first words of the book are, it's not about you. And I had never heard that before. I thought that I was responsible for getting me into heaven. And this was amazing to me.
Shannon discovered God's grace covered all her shortcomings and failures.
I used to live in constant anxiety, but what I didn't know then is that God, even as He sees us, little me, big me, us right now, He delights in us as we are, even if we're broken, even if we're making mistakes. He's loving us.
Today, Shannon and Joe are happily married and following Christ together. Shannon co-hosts a program on Family Life Radio and has written 2 books. She says her life is no longer a struggle.
I have no interest in measuring up anymore. I got one goalpost, and it's the Kings.